We're live.
Are we live? Okay,
We
great.
are on the nose.
I just want to navigate so I can see where the chat is and so on. So there we are. And there's a room and there's some people. Hello, hello, lovely people. And if you'd like to type in the chat box, actually, I'm not so familiar with this software. So if someone wants to say hello, that would be lovely. And then I know you can hear me, and Anne, say hello so that they can hear you.
Yeah, so there we go. It's so great to be here and talk all things money. So yeah, it'll be great. You can just type in the chat box. Just let us know your name and where you're from. It just lets us know that you're hearing us okay. Will be awesome. Yay, Pavel.
Pavel has said hello. Hello, Pavel. We love you. As long as one person says hello, then we know that we're live and we're good to go. So we'll get started straight away. Have you hit record?
Yes, it's all rocking and rolling.
Belt and braces, because sometimes I forget to do these very important things on these things. So good evening. So good evening, Bruce, Ashley, Pavel. So I'm here this evening with this absolutely wonderful woman, Anne Wilson. And those of you who have known me for a while know that I like to regularly gush a bit about this lady. And it's not because I'm a typically gushy sort of person, but because there are a few people in my life who have been really profoundly influential on my journey, but also she's just a super lovely person. So if you haven't met Anne before, you're absolutely in for a treat. And to introduce Anne, Anne Wilson is the wealth chef. That's what she's known as. She is somebody who has become financially free herself. And instead of doing what many people would do when they become financially free, which is put her feet up and enjoy a very long and early retirement, Anne instead felt really passionate about what she saw as people's lack of financial education and understanding, and also the way that people get caught up in these get rich quick type schemes and get caught up in investments that are overcomplicated, and is really making a mission out of teaching people like myself and like a lot of you, how to actually manage your money day to day so that it stops being a source of stress and it starts to become a source of freedom. And as you're going to see, all you can see now is a lovely smiley face. But what you're about to be introduced to is a really sharp brain as well. So you're going to see how smart she is. So hopefully you're going to get a lot from this. I certainly have. I started working with Anne in early 2014. That's actually how I know her. I was her client originally, and she was my money coach. And that was the beginning of an entire, my entire way I manage my money, the way I think about my money, all the stress relating to money disappeared. Everything changed for me. So I'm really delighted to introduce Anne, which is why I do bang on about her a lot, and why if there's ever a chance to shout about her, I do it. So I'm very proud of, I'm not going to apologize for the fact that I rave about Anne. So hello and welcome, Anne.
Well, thank you. And I'm learning how to receive, which is a really important part of our wealthy journey. And so, wow, thank you so much for that. And it just is such a privilege for me to be here and to be able to do this, because I know from my own journey what a source of unbelievable anxiety and stress and disconnection from life money can be. And I use that word consciously because I think, part of, yes, there's an end point, there's a destination of what is financial freedom in terms of a calculation, a formula, and we're going to get to that. But there's also part of the freedom along the journey, which is our relationship with money and being free of that anxiety and stress. And yeah, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction, and also for your journey, because it's been through now being able to work with other people and really supporting them, seeing that so many beautiful multiple layers of it, and seeing that freedom isn't just about that destination when you no longer have to earn for money. And you are just such a epitome of transitioning that. So
yeah, that's a big part for me. So what we're talking about this evening, as you know, we're talking about how you it's not just how you manage your money. We've called this talk how you manage your money for maximum freedom and happiness. But it's not just how to, it's also how you're thinking about your money. It's the whole mindset and approach to it. So we're going to be talking possibly in a slightly haphazard way because we both can chat, but we're going to be talking about, what financial freedom means to us both. We're going to talk about how we both manage our money. Anne's going to talk about her own money management system because, like I said, she became financially free, and she's going to share with you some of the system behind how she did that. And we will also, providing we have time and we don't talk too much, we're going to share some of our money disasters when it comes to business, the places where maybe we haven't been so sensible. And I know from myself, I have certainly always been very sensible with money, probably too sensible. But when it came to my business, I was the opposite. I would invest money very quickly without really looking into things properly. So we'll talk about that a bit as well. So, Anne, where would you like to start with all of these lovely, juicy things?
And we'll also hopefully get some questions answered.
Yes.
So you can type questions in to the box. If something pops up or if you want clarification, do that as well. Because I think, so much about what I'm passionate about and what I know is so transformative in this is about having these conversations, about having this real talk. So I'm so grateful for Catherine for creating that framework, because one of the key aspects of being able to give money our better leadership and management is being able to talk about it and create an intimacy with it. And I think for so many of us, I certainly grew up that money wasn't something we really spoke about. It was slightly fearful. It was slightly taboo. It was almost slightly dirty. And so there was this, it was a bit like sex as well. Both somehow you were meant to just fathom. But money got some more disastrous consequences than just, being shit at sex. But that's a whole other bit.
That's a whole other story. Stop. We're going to stop you there, Anne. I'm going to stop you there.
We're going to veer off.
Do you want questions as we go through, or are you going to wait until a point at the end for people to ask?
Well, let's put the questions in because we can we'll catch them in the chat. So we can capture them.
So as we're going along, if you've got questions, type them in. If it's appropriate, we'll stop and Anne will address them as she sees them. She may decide to save some until later, because sometimes your question, you might think it's a simple question, but it's actually an enormous, great big answer. So we'll see how we go. So where do you want to begin, Anne?
I really want to begin with this sense of, what is freedom? What is money freedom? And so, in its purest sense, and the journey that I hope and I hold and I support every person on is getting to the technical, or should I say the financial place where, for me, financial freedom is when you have enough assets. So there's these other things that grow in value and can earn income for you to be able to choose to not work if you don't want to. So there's these other things generating income, and also indefinitely. So they continue in a sustainable way. And that is what I achieved. It's actually, it was in August. So actually I'm sort of celebrating my 12th year of freedom.
Wow.
Just like, I know, how cool is that? And where I got to the point of where I had enough of these assets, so stocks and shares, investment property, and businesses that could generate all these things that could make money for me without me having to be involved in the value exchange. So for me, what that is, so that's the destination. And the great thing is we can calculate what that is, what that size of that pot needs to be, and put a plan in place to get there. Now, what is key for me is the so what. So why should we bother? Because it's not ever for the money for itself. So that is the seed that then creates the freedom. That itself isn't the freedom, but it is an enabler. And I think for me, what it gives is the ultimate freedom. It gives back the freedom of choice. And I think is the greatest gift we can give, because I think the components of that, so for me, freedom really has 4 components with it. So it's first freedom of choice of our time, possibly our most precious thing of all. I think our lives are made up of almost like this beautiful, beautiful chain of different beads, these grains of time, moments of time just seeded together. And I think when we are able to spend more of that time consciously, really choosing what we're going to do with them, who we're going to spend them with, how we're going to use them. That collection, and I'm looking at that your beautiful necklace there, there's all these beads through it, is, what is that we're going to create, as opposed to so many people, so many of those beads are just have to be given away or used up just to earn this thing called money. So it's freedom of time. I think for me, there's also just freedom of location. And when you're no longer tied to having to work in a specific job or be in a specific place in order to earn money, that is just extraordinary as well. So I can manage my assets anywhere in the world, from the beach, from top of the mountain skiing. But the key thing is so not only can I travel and look after them, but I can also live anywhere. And I am a bit of a gypsy. Part of what makes life really rich for me is meeting diverse people, living in different cultures. When I've managed to be very blessed to live in 6 countries, and being able to immerse myself in different cultures is just extraordinarily rich for me, and it strips away my beliefs. So that freedom of location is extraordinary, because again, there's no connection needed to be involved in that money exchange. And then, the next freedom for me is really freedom of choice around who we spend our time with. Not having to stay in a job and have shitty co-workers, or having to work with clients that drive us mad. That choice again of who we choose to spend that freedom of connection. Because I think what we really know is that richness of life is so impacted on by who we spend our time with, and what we put in our mind. But ultimately for me, Kath, and I think this is what I really got once I'd created my own freedom, was freedom of purpose. That I can, and I just feel extraordinarily blessed that I had no idea when I set off on this journey that this was the real gift I was giving myself, but the gift to be able to use my life force. Something, in a way that's deeply meaningful to me. Oh, you already made me cry, and you didn't do anything.
Made yourself cry.
This is ultimately the freedom to get to play, to express just life, and in its fullness. And it's not about having, some people might be having the big yacht or the mega side, but for me, it's more the liberation of spirit and soul. So what is it for you?
So what you've described, and you've described the financial freedom that comes from actually being able to live off your assets and never need to work again, which has given you the freedom of time, freedom of location, freedom of who you spend, and freedom to pursue your life's purpose. And for me, financial freedom used to mean all of that stuff, and it still does. It still means that for me one day. But what the work I've done with you has done for me, Anne, is it's given me financial freedom right now, today, even though I'm not officially, in quotes, financially free yet. Because for me, money used to be such a huge source of anxiety. And I, as a lot of people know who are listening, I suffered for many years with a chronic exhaustive condition. I had ME. And a really large contributing factor to that was the anxiety around money. And when I recovered, there was still all this anxiety and fear, and whether it was worrying about money or being fearful about money or being anxious about what am I supposed to do about money. And all of this, it was just such an area of confusion for me that my whole relationship with money now just feels so free. And I am not financially free according to the criteria Anne is talking about. I could not give up work tomorrow. I have to work for a living, so it's a really good thing that I love my work as much as I do. But I'm free of the stress and anxiety because I can now see, using the tools that Anne has given me, I know how much money I actually need to have invested in order to be financially free, which was nowhere near as much as I would have thought it was if I was left to my own devices. It also, I have a fairly rough, you know, within a couple of years, maybe, and maybe it's within a 2 to 4 year range of when I will become financially free if I continue to follow the process and money management that I'm doing now. And so as long as I keep managing my money in the way that I'm managing it, I'm free of financial worry and anxiety. Now, of course, there is a potential source of money worry and anxiety for me, which would be, you know, what if something happened and my business wasn't working, and the sort of income stopped flowing, and there was actually nothing at all? Well, that's a different thing to worry about. But, you know, maybe I would be justified in stopping and having a bit of anxiety about that. And, oh, what am I going to do? And will I need to get a job? Will I need to set up a new business? But what I'm free of is the anxiety, like the unnecessary anxiety that came about money that I didn't need to have. I just needed to know how to think about money and what to do with it and have a clear plan. So, you know, I may want to work at some point. Maybe I won't. I love what I do so much, but I certainly wouldn't want to have no choice about it. Yeah. And so I can see that there is this point in the future where I will be financially free. And it actually ties in quite nicely with a sort of an early retirement age for me. So I'm like, the other thing we don't talk about along with sex and money is our age, right? So I'm I'm going to go for it here. I'm going to be turning 48 in December this year. And certainly by the age of 60, if not sooner, if I keep following what I'm doing, I will be financially free. And I'm not worrying about my retirement or anything like that right now. And there's no, you know, it might be quicker and it might be a little bit longer, but it gives me a huge sense of freedom and security just knowing that. And we've got a bit of a funny echo, Anne. Is it a problem?
No, that's my cat at the door.
Oh, okay, fine. That's all right. I thought it was
that's Bracken wanting to come in and play. Oh. Usually she comes and shows her bum in webinars, you know, comes up here. So I've kept the door closed. But you've just hit the nail on the head, because this is the second component. You know, there is that destination, but there's no freedom in waiting to be free. Yeah. And exactly when we get, because if we actually get that slightly more esoteric, but we really get it, that whilst we set in place systems to really give us that look after the future financial well-being, it's about the now as well. So this is, I think, what's so key when we look at the money management. It's not just about some future place. It's not just about that deprivation or anxiety and, oh, you're doing something that sometime in the future I'll be okay. Because that's where on my journey, first I had no idea about money management. I couldn't have been more financially literate. And I just knew I had to work hard and then bring it in. I thought that was the end of the equation, but no idea what to do with it then. And so it all just went tearing out the back end, including some more, because I discovered this thing called credit. And I thought that's just the way the world was. So I went into this gigantic debt hole. And that just took me to anxiety and stress, because I realized that actually I'd created a real prison for myself, that if something happened to me or if I couldn't work, I couldn't survive. And I actually had I'd sold my future life force already. But once I'd managed to climb out of that debt hole, which I then learned how to do, I swung to the other extreme. And I thought that being great with money and the way I would look after myself and provide my protection and get rid of this anxiety or worry that I see so many people experience was if I somehow could control myself and if I could spend as little as possible. And it all became about contraction. So I swung from almost binging on money that I didn't even have to a sort of money anorexia. These two complete extremes, because I thought that's maybe what money management was. I thought I had to manage me, my desires, my dreams, and that if I could just hold on. But it became and this is, so when you speak about the freedom, that place had even more stress in a way than the ignorant debt place I was in, because I had no idea how much was enough. I had no idea what I needed to be doing. So it was just this holding on and hoping it would be okay, and hoping that somehow there'd be enough, but I had no idea how much enough was. I had no idea what to do with the money. So I hadn't yet learned the difference between investing and saving. And so that was a key lesson, but we'll get to that sort of when we come to the side. But also it was really a fearful place, because, and one of deprivation, because the fear also came was I ever going to be getting to a place where I could actually live my life? And I see so many people around this money thing, this deferral going, when I've got this, maybe when I've got that pile of money, or when I'm financially free. But I see people doing on the earning side, this deferral of living. And, I think you've epitomized that and got it so beautifully, that when we realize that life is now, so how do we find that way of managing the money to liberate ourselves from that, not go into deprivation and scarcity, but also really ensure that, but able to live fully now. And that was that key middle point. I'm going to open this door because this cat's going to keep meowing.
Yes, you can sort the cat out. Sort the cat out. And, one of the things that Anne...
That's part of that freedom, is enjoying all of your little fur kids as well. There we go. She was determined to come and say hello to everybody.
There she is. There
she is.
Yeah, so, that was one of the things that you taught me as well. And I had really fallen into this, I need to save money. And it was almost like I was very contracted. I felt I shouldn't spend it. And money itself had come for me to become a source of stress and exhaustion. I thought I had to work really hard for it. Then I had to save it. There was no pleasure or juice or flow around money for me. And one of the things that I learned, that Anne has taught me, is how to really enjoy my money right now, because right now is when my life is happening. My life isn't going to start happening when I'm retired or when I'm financially free. My life is happening now. And I think this is one of the really important things about what Anne teaches, is how to manage our money. So I now manage my money so that I have money to splurge and spend on the things that I value, even though they might appear to be frivolous or a waste of money to somebody else, and at the same time be gradually investing and chipping away at that financial future. And it's not one or the other, because if you do all splurging and all have a crazy happy life, buying everything you want, then you end up never able to stop working for that money. But if all you do is save, you lose all the pleasures of the moment, because there are a lot of free things that are pleasurable, like walking on the beach or walking in the rain, but there are a lot of things that really matter to me, that give my life a lot of juiciness and richness, that cost money. And I used to deny myself those things, and I don't. So it's really funny. It's almost like I feel I'm spending more of my money than I ever used to, but at the same time, I'm much more confident that I'm on track to my financial freedom than I ever used to be as well. So how do you want to talk a bit about how you actually manage your money for, on a sort of day-to-day, month by month?
Absolutely. And I think sort of what was a huge lesson for me, and the first real big shift. So there were two big shifts that came in my freedom journey. One was understanding and learning what assets are, and realizing that I needed to shift my focus off trying to earn more to instead learning how to create assets. I know she's determined to prove that she's one of my assets. And she's a huge gift in my life. But really needed to realize that, it was that I focused my energy and focus on how to build my net worth from these assets. So that was a key, huge shift. And it took quite a while to really grapple with that, because I've been so wired into earning, being told that I needed to go and earn, get a good job, start a business, earn money, and that was the way to freedom. So that was a key shift. But then the second big shift for me was, again, moving away from looking at the inflow to realizing that our wealthy life is created at the outflow. So it's created when we really get, if we are creators, we are responsible for the life that we are creating. And
can you explain a bit more there, Anne, about the inflow and the outflow? Because I understand that because I've worked with you, but I don't think I don't think it's such an obvious concept.
Yeah. So, one of the things with managing money was I really had to get that, money comes in and money goes out. Okay, income and expenses. But it's what we do in that middle part. What we do with the money when it comes in, which is absolutely vital, which is what creates our heaven or our hell around our money. But that our wealthy life, our experience of a juicy, wealthy life is directly impacted in this day-to-day aspect, in our experience of our existence, at where the money flows out. So at our choice of what we're going to choose to exchange money for. So if you really think at one way, we do stuff, we exchange our life force and our time and our energy and our skills to get money in. Money is an exchange of value, comes in, and then we exchange it for other things. Now, before I really got this, I was either just fixated on earning it or saving it. But there was this whole big gap around real consciousness. What was I exchanging it for? What did I choose to give my
You've lost your sound a little bit.
Oh,
when you threw the cat off.
Okay. We had enough of her. What am I really choosing to, and am I getting value from that? And this started becoming a shift of going, okay, my wealth is created at this point. So if there's sort of questions here, I'm starting to get to me. So imagine money as just Play-Doh or Lego pieces. The world we're creating, the life experiences we are consciously creating by every bit of how we use that money and what we exchange it for. And I realized that there were 3 levels of outflow expenses. There was just that completely what I just call neutral outflow now, stuff that we need to exchange our money for, that provides the sort of bottom of Maslow's hierarchy. It still provides great value to us. It's the roof over our head, it's some of the food, it's access to water and electricity, and so extraordinary value, but it might be our base needs. There's then what I call our real juicy life. So this is our conscious stuff where we go, okay, I'm choosing to spend this money and I'm conscious about getting maximum value for it. So I know what that is going to. And then there's a whole chunk of what I call unconscious or rats in the pantry or just these leaks where we've taken on maybe expenses that we've even forgotten about. We all have these rats in the pantry. So some are completely unconscious. Maybe we signed up for a regular subscription service. We're not even using it. These are things like maybe bank fees, all just little bits and pieces that maybe we can't be bothered or we've forgotten are there. But there's also a whole chunk that goes into this non-value category, which is stuff that we've taken on because we either thought we needed to fit in, because that's just, who the people like people like me have those things. It might be cable, satellite, or a gym subscription or whatever it is. But that we've chosen to bring in more from a place of fear or fitting in, but not really aligned to what our authentic truth is. And so the reason I'm starting at this point was when I realized, hang on, I can put in place a whole money management system, which will make sure I'm looking after my savings, my safety net, my future investing. But there's this whole system, how to also make sure that what I'm doing day to day brings me great joy and life and really gets maximum value. And this is where, when we start shifting and going, this is about money leadership. It's actually life leadership. And it's going, if I were to think of money as a staff member in my team, in my business, it's my responsibility to let that team member know what they need to do, what I want from them, what the vision is that we're wanting to create, and how I need them to do it to be efficient and effective and bring the most value. And in order to do that, I need to know what it is that I'm wanting to create. And so there's these elements, but we can sit there and this is the difference between when I was contracted and just trying to save. I didn't know for what purpose, what was the life I wanted to create. So together with the whole management system, it needs to come with this overlay. And this is what you've done so beautifully, is you've got to get really conscious about what is a wealthy life for me? What's a wealthy life for you? What's a wealthy life for you, Bruce and Evie and Yuta? This, because it's completely unique to each of us. And the more we go down that journey of really getting congruent and have the courage to strip away the stuff that actually doesn't serve, and more going, this is what lights me up in life, the money management gets so much easier. So I know that's a sort of high level. We can get down to the bits and pieces, but that was really key for me to understand that first. I needed to have a vision. I needed to work more and more and more. And I still do. It's still a constant, wonderful journey of discovery of what is a wealthy life for me. And then understanding, am I directing my resources, not just my money, but also my time and energy, but money being a key one, to creating more of that and stripping away the waste.
And I think that is such an important point that you're making, because people don't always stop and think about what is a wealthy life for them. Now, for some people, a wealthy life really is a life of luxury. You know, they want the great car and the great holidays, and there is an element of really needing that their financial freedom could literally be like tens of thousands of pounds a month every month. And if that's their truth, then that's fine. The thing that I found, though, was that before I worked with you, when I first set up my business, I was all hell bent on growing a 1 million turnover business, because I thought that was financial freedom. And that was also how I would contribute and give back, which was also important to me. But what I realized actually through doing the work with you and just through my own, just self-awareness, is that I'm actually a really, really simple girl, and I don't have many material requirements, and I'm not a great consumer. I have a very simple, small car. If I was a millionaire, I would still have the car I've got because I love it and I'm happy with it. And so for me, it's like, why would I have some imagined idea that I want to be some like wealthy millionaire retiree when actually I'm a super happy girl on the lifestyle I currently have, which is fairly simple. I'm very minimalist. I live in a fairly small place. I like that. My pleasures are simple pleasures, and there are things that I splurge on. So, I like to travel. I spend money on things like my hairdresser, and I like to have nice clothes. So there are things that I'll spend on, but on the whole, when I look at what do I need my assets to generate for me every month in order for me to be financially free on my terms and not need to work anymore, it's nowhere near as much as I would have thought that it would be. And while I'm talking, I want to just talk about one other thing, which is when you talked about inflow and outflow, and I actually thought you meant something else, but the thing I thought you meant, I think, is quite important, because this was a really big thing for me to learn from you as well, which was that we all run around thinking that what matters is earning more money. We think, if I want to be financially free, I've got to grow a business and I've got to take my business to 1 million, or I've got to have this massive sales month and that's going to change everything for me. Or if I'm in a job, I've got to get a better job, or I've got to have a better pay rise. And actually, wealth, I really learnt this from Anne, and it's a really different way of looking at it. But your true wealth is not created at the point that the income comes into your life. It's created at the point of what you decide to do with that income. Yeah. And so if you're in a job and you're struggling to create your financial freedom with what you've got, even if you doubled your salary, you probably still wouldn't achieve financial freedom because you wouldn't be doing the right things with it. Whereas you can achieve financial freedom with a much lower amount as long as you're consciously and sensibly directing that money where it needs to go. And that was a huge aha. It's like, so I don't need to wait for some big payday in the sky. I can It's what I do with the money I have, not about how much I bring in. So a lot of people are almost approaching their financial freedom from the wrong angle. They're looking and thinking for how can I bring more in, instead of looking at what can I do with the money that is already coming in order that can support me in the future. So that was
absolutely. No, and you've got it perfectly. I'm so you absolutely.
I could be like I'm like your what's the phrase, like a disciple or an assistant, where I've learned so much from you I can teach it now.
But it is this, and so talking about money management is this key shift, because we're being so wired. Our education system, our society teaches us that it's all about earning, it's all about the inflow. If I could just earn more, even like hell, if I could just get the lottery, maybe if Uncle Albert would just finally pop his clogs and leave me his money. We all think it's that inflow, but it's that very thing that you've just said, is because so people then don't understand it's what you do with it that creates that wealthy life, is why terrifying statistics. And, often people talk about the lottery and say, over 90% of people who win the lottery will be in a worse financial position within 2 years after a big inflow. But it's not just the lottery. I've seen it for people who've got a divorce settlement. Maybe they've got a big chunk there. Maybe a life insurance is paid out from a spouse or something happened. Maybe they got an inheritance. And again, this flood comes in, but because they've got no system to actually catch it, deal with it, and make sure it actually transforms their life, it can actually just destroy them because it makes the outflow just bigger. So maybe we should start talking to actually then the managing it. Should we dive in there?
Yeah, like actually how we manage our money.
Yeah.
Yes, let's
so
do
the
that.
first is shifting the mindset. Now, my aim for everybody, and for everybody to see how to go, and how the hell do you do that? But I want to put this concept in. The first step to your money management system is uncoupling it from how much you earn. And Catherine understands this but it's a journey to get there, because again, we've been so taught that you sort of spend based on what you earn. And you do need to develop your money management system to an idea to get to a place of, this is what my juicy life is. It needs to be aligned to it, but it's about breaking that association. And this is a big one I see a lot of entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, people who own their own business, have a real challenge with variable income, because they still linked their money management and especially what they spend and their lifestyle and their cost to what they earn. And so when their earnings go up and down, it completely throws them off and brings huge anxiety, and also often prevents them from putting in place systems to start growing assets, to start creating a cash safety net, to start doing a savings pot for future spending, because they can't get a rhythm. So one of the key things is you want to have the concept that you want to uncouple your inflow from your money management. And how you do that is creating a separate account where all your money flows into. And I call this a reservoir account, where it's like a big dam. So imagine when the rain falls, there's catchment. Now, living in a country like the UK, but your weather's changing as well. But you have more consistent rain than, say, other countries where maybe there's a rainy season for 3 months and then it's dry for another 9 months. You've got to create systems to catch that flow. And when we start thinking, that's the same, that's all our money is. And we've been created like this sort of Pavlov's dog kind of thing, that ding, money comes in weekly or monthly, and therefore we respond in that way. But actually, that's not natural. In most of the world, there's seasons. So if we first create an account where all money can go in, and this means that also it neutralizes money. So as we start creating more passive income from our assets, we start creating better habits that allows money to come in and be held. So also, if you get a tax refund, if you do get that inheritance, if you get a gift, we don't suddenly go, this money doesn't really count because I didn't earn it, so let me go and blow it. You let all money be equal. in this pot. And then you go, okay, what does my lifestyle actually cost? And every month you transfer that amount over into your day-to-day transactional account. And this was really big for me. And I really started doing this most should be about 17 years ago. Most should be early 2000s, really separated out my inflow from what I spent, where I would set myself a budget. But I saw it more as this was the money I had, irrespective of what I was earning, irrespective of bonuses or increases. And I didn't let myself be swayed by that. I said, this is what I want. And then said, okay, now I'm going to challenge myself, my creativity and everything else to how do I get the most out of that? So that's the first key step, was getting clear on amount of money that you're going to choose to make a great life out of, and then start dividing up. And so that is a key first step in that separation of the money management. And then we'll go to sort of wealth pie, which I'll call in a moment, about dividing the money up into different pots. But I really recommend the 6-pot money allocation system. So consciously allocating and slicing up the money that comes in to serve different purposes of our life. And this also is the thing that gives the freedom, because when there's just an ad hoc sort of money flowing out to different things in quite a knee-jerk way, that can create a huge amount of stress, as opposed to going, this is for those kind of things. So when the car breaks down, those to be expected, unexpected life events happen, it doesn't cause financial stress. It doesn't cause us to go into debt or this drama or this anxiety that, oh my God, am I having to rob my future self, or what's going on? There is a provision for that, and for different means. So having a system of allocating, really, really key. And then the final sort of key aspect for me there's 2 more points in terms of manage the money, is with that in place, having a system of what I call spend planning. So it's about having a look ahead and just looking up at the 50,000-foot level and going, oh, wow, that's amazing. Christmas is happening in December. Who would have thought? It actually happens every year. Like, oh my God, it doesn't have to be a financial crisis. So we can go, I know that in that month, there's going to be a bigger chunk. I also happen to have a family that obviously was, it was quite boring. Obviously, Easter was a key part. They took the rabbit part of Easter quite seriously. And just about all of my siblings and who they married and my niece and nephew are all born in September, which is sort of the Christmas baby side. And so I know September is always going to be a big sort of gift month. And so when you know those things, if you also know your insurances, so there's about this is where I talk about becoming intimate and just conscious about, these are going to be outflows, also really helps to diffuse that anxiety, because it's not about surprises. And so you can plan that scheduled outflow going out. And then the 4th element to managing money is this getting intimate and knowing what your money is doing. And so for a lot of people, this sounds so boring, like, doing an income statement. And all an income statement is knowing it's also called a profit and loss, what money's coming into your life and what's going out. But setting up a simple system to manage and go, okay, what's happened in the last month? What came in? What went out? And the more you do it and create this habit, this rhythm, it gets easier and easier. And so I have a money date, and I encourage people to have a money date every month. And I use the word money date because it's about getting intimate with my money. It's giving it time. It's like, if you want a great relationship, you've got to give some energy to it. You've got to make space for that person and find out what they're doing and how they're going and tell them what you're needing. And that's exactly what your money date is. And one of the things that you do in your money date is look at what's happened in the last month and check to see, are you on track with your plan, and then see what's coming up so you can make decisions about what's going to go on. So those are the key elements in terms of managing money day to day, which just creates the sense that actually money is serving you rather than enslaving you. And you now in control. You're now the master of it rather than it blowing you all around. And so those are key aspects for me in managing my money. So what's been transformative for you in managing your money?
Well, for me, I mean, you talked about being a business owner with the income spikes and then the periods without so much income. And actually, similarly to you, I actually run my business on what's called a launch model, which means that by conscious choice, I do all of my sales at particular times of the year. And so I will do, somewhere around 150,000 across just September, October, November every year. And then I will do a little trickle of sales here and there through the rest of the year, but it's not significant. And of course, for a lot of people would find that really difficult to manage. And what I do is I put that money into a separate account. It goes into a buffer account. And it's almost as if I haven't earned it yet. It's like it hasn't actually reached me because it's gone into the buffer.
Absolutely. It's gone, that it's the dam for the...
Yeah, it's gone into the reservoir. I call it the buffer. It's gone into the reservoir. And it's only when I take it out, then it's almost like it hasn't reached me and it's held out there in this holding place. And it's only when it comes into me that I will pay myself a chunk of that every month. And then I'll work out what the tax is on that in that month, and I'll work out my different allocations into my wealth pots on that. And the rest of it is still sitting out there because the next month I'm going to need to pay myself the same amount again. And if I just went, I do a little bit of, oh my gosh, I've just done all these sales, I'm going to blow a bit. I do a little bit of that. I do treat myself to things at that time of year. But mostly I don't go, oh my gosh, I've got all this money sitting in the bank and it's almost itching at me. I've just got to blow it all. And then I go, okay, so where's the money coming from? So that's one piece that I do. I follow the wealth pots. You call them wealth pots, which is a great visual because you could almost imagine saying, okay, so here's the sum of money that I'm paying myself this month. Yeah. I'm going to put this much into my, so there's my investment pot, and then there's my personal savings for spending later pot. There's my immediate necessities for living pot. There is my expenses and luxuries pot. And there is pot to pay off credit, because I do have some credit on personal credit cards. And there's a pot, according to your system, there's a pot for personal growth. But I've actually, and this is the nice thing about Anne's system, you can adapt it to meet your what needs to work in your life, because I have had really significant health problems in the past. And so I don't use conventional medicine, I use alternative health, and it's effectively private healthcare, and it's very expensive. And so I spend so much on my health every month that it's a necessity for me. But if I took that out of my necessities pot, I wouldn't achieve my wealth pot percentages, which is what we're aiming for. And so I've decided to make my personal growth pot my health pot. And then when I want personal growth items, I buy them for myself when I do have a spike in money. And I like if the business has a good month or there is spare money, I go, okay, so I want to go on that course. Or I want to go on that retreat, and I can see the money's there, but it's separate to my wealth pots. And I've had to adapt it that way to make the wealth pots work for me because of that.
But I love this, because this is about what I talk about, you being the master of our own ship. Because we then go, that's an area that's really important to me. So I'm going to be conscious about it. And I'm going to be conscious that money is directed to that, rather than just hoping there'll be enough for our health or hoping there'll be enough for these bits and pieces. But it's actually going, hang on, I get to be the one to direct it. And that comes back to that freedom. Oh, God, I love that.
And I also have a specific amount every month that I transfer. This is part of personal saving. This is part of saving for future spending, but I actually have a specific amount every month that now goes into this separate account, which is to pay for all the things to do with running my car. And honestly, for years and years and years, you'd think that every single year it would come round, I'd need the tax and the insurance, and I would be so surprised by these big spikes in needing to pay for the Christmas. I have to pay it. And every single year the car will break down because I run an old car and it will need something doing. And every single time I'm really surprised, because that's a few £100 I hadn't accounted for. And now I have a monthly amount. It's like a direct debit for my car, because I know, like, if I really stop and think about it, I know the car is going to cost me that much over the year. So now it goes into this account. And then when I get the breakdown or the something that needs replacing, it's like, okay, I don't have to go and put it on my credit card like I used to, and then worry about where I was going to get it from. So, yeah, those are some of the things that I do to just link to what you've just talked about.
So that is just so beautiful. I mean, I'm just sort of seeing the time. So I just want to quickly say, so the simple system, well, you can, if you haven't got the Wealth Chef book, it's all in here, and it's the first recipe called Wealth Pie, and there's some blogs on my site as well. But essentially, it's saying your first key part is your freedom part. This is the part of allocation of that seed money that goes to creating assets. And you know, Evie, you've said, how do you go about creating assets from zero? Then the really important thing here is a lot of people get caught up in, oh, but there's not a lot of money, so what's the point? The habits that you create around money are far more important than the amounts initially. And so you can start investing in what's called an index tracker, so getting stocks and shares invested. And Evie, I don't know what country you're in, but there are these different tax-efficient pots. So if you're in the UK, that could be an ISA. In South Africa, a tax-free savings account. In the US, a Roth, where you can start from £25 a month, from $40, from 300 Rand, into these great low cost, meaning there's low fees on them. So your money works for you, not for some broker in that. And that's how you start creating it, little amounts. Because one of the challenges, we also aren't really taught to understand exponential growth, compounding. It's not something that our brain easily understands, that actually these small amounts matter. These small amounts consistently put in start stacking on top of each other and start creating it. But also it sends a huge message to us, our unconscious and to our well-being, that there is enough. When we know that the very first slice we can put is to ourselves, to our dreams, to our financial well-being, to our peace of mind, it's an extraordinary gift that sort of settles other things and is part of that freedom. So that first 10% of everything comes and goes into your freedom pot, your investment and creating assets. The second is what Catherine's already mentioned, which is your save to spend. So this is the difference between investing is to create assets that will give you that buy you your freedom, versus your save to spend is money that you're going to spend in the future. Replacing that car, buying that home, going on a really big fancy holiday, your kids' education. These are the things you're going to allocate for, and that's 10%. Then the next allocation is 10% to growth, which we've mentioned, which is about knowing that we are one of the most important assets we have. So how do we keep growing ourselves? How do we have money available to either increase our skills, to earn more, to go on the more journey within and our personal growth on all these different levels, our education. So keep expanding us. Now, the fourth part, well, actually, I'm going to leave this one for a little bit later. So the next one is our day-to-day, our necessities. So we need to allocate that. And this is where most people go, oh, my God, Anne, you loony. But your aim is to spend your necessities, your day-to-day, to be maximum 55% of what you earn. And some of you might go, oh, be hyperventilating, but understand this, it really, really is achievable. And it's about targets to aim towards. So if you're currently spending 100% on more on just your lifestyle, you start going, oh, I need to shift this because there's a disconnection with my wealth. And that's going to cause huge anxiety. But when you start getting clear out what we call squeezing the juice and stripping away these unconscious expenses, you'll discover that that is a lot easier. What Catherine's already spoken about, this lightening the load. So 55%.
It's a process as well, you know, because
Absolutely.
When I started following this, I thought 55%, you must be insane. It was just an impossible idea to me. Yeah. But I've chipped away at it every month. And every month I sit and I look at it and I think, how can I get that down even further? And it means challenging myself on my priorities. Like, is this thing really so important to me that I would rather have it than have my financial freedom one day? and it gradually chipping, like just the other day I found a new hairdresser who's nearly half the price of the one I was using before, but it's still really good. And it's that, like, I'm really excited now because that brings that down, you know, and you can start getting excited about like the game of reducing your expenses, but without sacrificing the things that are important.
Yeah.
Because you could argue that if I didn't colour my hair, I would save a fortune. Well, clearly I would save a fortune if I didn't colour my hair. But this is an important thing to me. It is actually not something I would compromise on, but I could compromise on the person who colours it for me.
And this, you know, I love it. So when we can, because ultimately it's the energy of how we approach it, which can either make it, oh my God, terrible, or deeply joyful, which is a perfect segue to the next part, which is the fun part, which is the play part, which is the juicy living part, which is, as you said, those luxuries. And, you know, I really talk about the sort of juicy living joy part. Because to me, it's yes, it's about those treaty things. It's about the luxuries, but it's also got deep consciousness about what is it that actually makes sure that lights me up, that turns me on, that brings me into the world energized, and knowing that actually this is vital. That actually, after the pay yourself first part, your investment, your freedom part, I believe this should be your second most highest priority part. Utility bills, food, all of that, quite frankly, can wait, because our turn on, our switch on, our health, our vitality, our joy is the thing that brings life, and is the thing that's actually going to bring us more wealth. Because if we're not full, if we can't pitch in the world full and charged up, you can't create more. You can't create abundance. You know, a depleted life cannot create. We just start realizing, and this was a huge thing for me when I was going from that scarcity, holding on to how can I deprive myself, believing that would give me sense of security. Actually, it was the worst thing that I could have done. It burst out in, I lost my marriage, all the money, and huge stress and anxiety, because it's completely disconnected by the essence of life force. So that play part is vital. And then the final part, the last 5%, is contribution. And this is the giving part. And, you know, when people have got debt, they first need to give the gift to themselves of liberation. And you can contribute in terms of time and skills in different ways. It doesn't only have to be with money. And then move to that, because we first have to get ourselves to a solid base. So those are just the parts that I wanted to quickly make sure we covered in.
Great. And I just want to check in, because I know what it's like to be on a webinar like this and think, well, what time are they finishing? Because me and you can get very excitable and we can talk a lot. And I think we probably came on here thinking that this was an hour. And we didn't actually announce how long it was going to be or anything. So we needed to rein us in a bit. But there's still two things that we said we do. We said we share our stories about our money mistakes in business. But we also did say at the beginning that we'd address the questions. And there's been lots of comments and questions. And I think that we could talk about our business mistakes, and that doesn't have a big chance.
I hope I'm not losing. Is this my signal? I'm not sure who we're losing, whether it's Kat or me. Could you let me know whether you can hear me in the questions, or whether it's Catherine's signal? So I lost her in that moment. Okay, cool. Okay, good. Well, listen, let me jump on. And let me start answering some of these questions which are here, which are really super, super, super questions. So Lucy is saying, I'm renting a beautiful place at a very cheap rent, and I can afford to buy a small flat in a not very nice place in London. What do you recommend in the situation? Super question. So Lucy, this is really important. When we start understanding money, what is the most important thing is to say, what is going to get my money working hardest for me? So everything is in the numbers. And so you want to start creating assets, and your assets, there are 3 asset categories. There's stocks and shares, investing in those. There is investment property, and then there are low input or passive income businesses.
Lost everybody now.
No, we got you back. They said they just lost you.
If anyone, something a bit odd has happened,
We're still here. We're answering.
Off now. So if anyone can, or maybe you can't hear me and you can hear Anne, it would be you could give a commentary so that we know. So can anybody actually hear me at the moment?
Yes, we can.
If you can, I'll carry going.
Yes, we can hear you, Catherine. And I'm just answering the question because we lost you for a sec.
We're all lost.
No. We're here. Catherine, can you hear us? Catherine. I'm busy answering Lucy's question.
Anne is answering the question.
Yeah, I'm answering Lucy's question. Can you not hear us? Okay.
Inga, can you hear Inga, Catherine or Anne? Because we might be sitting in our homes talking, not knowing which one of us. Is that me, Inga, that's moving, or is it Anne?
Okay, so
I sort of want to know whether I should carry on speaking or not, or whether to just shut up because you've lost me.
Catherine, we can. Okay, I might have to type in. Catherine.
Both of us. Okay.
Okay. So let me carry on.
I'm going to shut. Catherine is going to shut up.
So Lucy. So those are your 3 asset categories. So in investment property, the really important thing is you want to make sure it's called washing its face. So you need to make sure that the rent covers the outgoings, and you're going to get benefit from both the yield, which is the income, as well as the capital growth. So actually on my blog site, go and look for a video on leverage. And so you start understanding why property is so sexy, because you can borrow money out. So you can benefit from this thing called expansion debt or good debt. And that will then help you determine whether something is a good asset or not. So whether it's a small flat, whether it's in London, whether it's ugly, whether it's pretty is irrelevant. It's the numbers that matter. And that is the key thing. Everything you're doing is finding assets that are going to make your money work harder and harder. And so as you start becoming more fluent in assets, that's how you accelerate your freedom. Okie dokie. So Bruce says, listening to Anne reminds me of a very funny saying. I hope I die before my money runs out. Well, Bruce, one of the things that really got me on this journey was my father died when I was in my early 20s. Now, I'm number 5 of 6 kids, and my mum had been looking after us and while my very sort of traditional family, dad did the earning, mum did the trying to keep us alive. And I got to watch her really go through deep anxiety and stress around this money stuff, because she, one, didn't know how to bring any more in, and she had a small pot of money that as a result after my father died. And literally that hoping that she ran out before the money did was just awful. And being completely financially illiterate myself, I couldn't help her. And also she didn't know who to trust, where to go to. And so this is key about changing that relationship, because to me, that's barbaric as a society. So you say the serious point is, how do you know the difference between someone who has a life and is managing money well and someone who's holding back on, dare I say, it's repressed dreams? I think just the fact that you're asking that question, Bruce, is so powerful and profound. And I think we all do that dance to an extent, and more will go through it, because I certainly, when I was deeply fearful, was hugely about repressed dreams. And I think one of the reasons was initially I had no idea how much was enough. I didn't know what my target was. And so that anxiety just meant it was almost this paralysis of being able to, can I actually do those things? Can't I do that? And so working out how much is enough for you is really key. And so simply put, Bruce, you calculate what is the cost of that lifestyle. And I really recommend that everybody starts off with their current lifestyle cost. Because if you could just continue living the lifestyle you have now without having to work, that's an incredible first start. And you can always increase it then, but at least it gives you a concrete point. And then you go, okay, what is the cost of this current lifestyle monthly? You multiply that by 12, and that will give you your annual cost of this lifestyle. And now obviously take out of that, repayments or pay contributions into investments, because obviously this is aiming for what does the investment pot need. So this is just straight lifestyle costs. And once you understand what that size is, you then divide that by 0.08, 0.08. You're dividing that by 8%, which what it does, it gives you the size of the assets, the value of your investments that you need, which could earn you that income and 8% return. Don't get hung up right now about how you get 8%, because in fact, all of my students are learning how to get 12, 15, 20% returns through different asset categories, different investment strategies. But the point is, this starts giving you a target. So when you know that, you can then go, okay, how long do I want to take to get there? Which starts answering Caroline's question, how long did it take you to get there? And I'll share that with you. But the point is, you start knowing this is now a choice. If you want to get there in 8 years, 12 years, 15 years, 3 years, 25 years, it doesn't matter. But now you've got a plan. You can go, okay, now how do I make sure this journey is key? And I think, Bruce, at the end of the day, it's about having this plan, but it's also about that consciousness of every day then choosing to say, what is my truth? What truly brings me joy? If I was already free, if I knew I already have enough, what is it that I would do with my life force, my time, my energy? And to constantly recheck in on that and then go, okay, what is there one little thing I can do today towards that? And so this is the interweaving of, as you say, the psychological side of going, life, there's no guarantee there's a tomorrow, but there's also no guarantee there isn't a tomorrow and many more tomorrows. So how do I create this beautiful line to make sure that both are extraordinary and filled? And that's how you do it. Okay. So Evie, we spoke about how do you go from zero to creating assets, but I'm going to come back and answer more. But Caroline, how long did it take me to get to that wow moment, my wealthy moment? And so what I didn't sort of share in my story, I was working in Hong Kong as a civil engineer. I'd working really hard to bring it in. I'd been saving all of this money. I'd got myself out of a debt hole, and I was in this place of now trying to save, but everything was about contraction. And so ended up just lots of anxiety and stress and arguments about money in my marriage. And so my young marriage fell apart, and I was in my early 30s, and both the money I'd been trying to save and hold on to so tightly and my marriage walked out the door. And I was like, wow, that's just extraordinary. I'd been working for almost 10 years by that stage. I had nothing to show for it, just this extraordinary amount of stress and a failed marriage. So here I was, a divorcee. And that's when I really went, okay, what is it? How do I turn this around? And from that day, starting this journey and shifting my focus to creating assets, but also shifting my focus to ensure I had a rich, juicy life while I did it, I created my financial freedom in 8 years. So at 38, and as I say, that was 12 years ago. So, I'm just about to turn 50. Was how long it took me to get there. And now I've had the pleasure of just really exploring what a wealthy life is for me and these other aspects, and continuing to grow my wealth. Because now for me, having achieved my own freedom, being great with money is a privilege. And I think almost a point that I need to do in order to impact. And because now my purpose is actually about how can I reach as many people as possible, and what's the impact I can make, and can I leave this world a better place for having had me in it? And so that's the time it took to get there. Okay, so Sandra has said, how do I apply these principles to business? Fantastic way. So the key thing is you apply exactly the same concept. So in your business, I want you to really think about how can you create both leadership and management to your money if you treat it in the same way as a resource, as an employee, and really go, am I ensuring as the leader of my business that I'm getting the most value for it? And it was interesting because Catherine mentioned that in one way in her personal life, she sort of had a way of almost depriving herself saving. But somehow when it comes to money, to the business, it was like a different set of values clicked in, and she could spend money easily, but almost too easily, and let it flow out. And really interestingly, when I started the Wealth Chef, I had created my freedom, I had all these different assets, and then I created this business. I was so passionate about it, I suddenly realized I was doing a very similar thing. And it was very interesting to see that how we can compartmentalize and deal with money in different ways, in different aspects of our life. And so one of the most important parts of this journey is starting to recognize that we can have completely different money behaviors in different segments of our life. So maybe with friends, maybe in our personal life, maybe with business, we can suddenly have a different relationship with it. And so I had to learn a whole new set of actually protecting my money from me. And I laugh about that. I learned how to do it in my personal life, where there's a little bit of me, a little bit of adrenaline junkie. I like some thrills, and I had to realize I needed to protect my investments and money, that they're not about it being exciting. And then when I started my business, realizing I had to set up a whole new criteria there to also protect my money from getting caught into, oh, maybe I should invest in this next thing. Maybe I need this new system. Maybe that's the next thing. And being caught into so enthusiastic, wanting it to be successful, that actually forgetting to be a good leader to my money, and really, really, really making sure I got value from it. And this is that fine line between not skimping and not contracting the business, but just adding elements where you make damn sure you add the value. So, Catherine spoke about having this reservoir, about having this buffer pot. Yay, she's back. Having this buffer in your personal life, this reservoir, but have the same thing in your business. Really create a space where you neutralize. All of the same principles apply in your business. You can put all the pots in place, but you obviously want to add a tax pot as well. So, your business needs to grow. Your business needs to have necessities. What is that bottom line? Are you making sure that the operational aspect of your business is 55% or less, so that you are actually making a profit? Now, I know that Catherine can speak more about it, but I also love this. In your business, I'd also highly recommend you look into the system Profit First. And I think this is the same sort of principle, where the profit first in your own personal life is where you make sure that first slice of money goes into your freedom pot. Well, in your business, make sure that you actually are making a profit. So there we go. Kat's showing super, super book. Go and look into that. Do you want to say anything about Profit First, Kat?
Yeah, Profit First has had the same effect on my business life that working with you has had on my personal finances. They're incredibly simple systems. Sorry, didn't mean to say simple. They're incredibly similar. They're very, very, very similar. It's almost like, and I know he didn't, but it's almost like Mike Mikhailovich came and did Financial Freedom University and then adapted for a business. So I implemented Financial Freedom University for my personal finances first. But the profit first I've used for the business, and the two go hand in hand. I think you need both. But what I like about Profit First is if you've done Financial Freedom University, you only need to buy the book. It's like £10, and then I implemented it from the book, because having understood Anne's system so well, it made so much sense. It was really easy for me to do. So it was, it was great. I logged off. I gave up in the end. I didn't know what had happened. I logged off completely, came back on, and I've lost all the chat, so I can't see any previous questions. So I know you've got that handled.
So that's perfect. Well, I think we've pretty much covered it. I'm just seeing the time, and I want to respect everybody's time. And it's just been such a pleasure and so much covered. And thank you for just your beautiful openness, because I think the more and more we can speak, we can neutralize the taboo, the stress, the confusion, the shame, the guilt, the perception that our worthiness, our enoughness is somehow linked to money. The more we're able to liberate ourselves and others. And you are just such an incredible, courageous, shining example of that. And I just want to thank you so much for that, Catherine.
You are welcome. Now, we did say we were going to share our money mistakes in business. Did you keep to that promise while I was gone?
So I shared a bit that the aspect. So what I did share, but there's one other thing I'd love to share. So I did share that for me, interestingly, with you, I've really had a grip on, I said, protecting my money from me, but having a money management system in my personal life. But when I created the Wealth Chef, it was as though I was so passionate. I so wanted it to succeed that there were a lot of my boundaries around money, my mechanisms, my ensuring that I got value from it just went out the door. And I suddenly had to catch myself going, wow, this is what's going on here, where I was getting caught. And I realized from fear, but also maybe enthusiasm, I was forgetting to be a good leader to my money. And that's what we were just speaking about as you came on, but really realizing it was another big learning for me that we can have different boundaries and different values around our money in different contexts, and just to be aware of that. And but one other little money mistake that I just thought, you know what, I want to share, because when I was just starting out in Hong Kong with this, I'd made this commitment that I wanted to really get to grips with this money stuff. And I realized there was this urgency in that I felt around, was I running out of time? Did I have to catch up? And it almost feels a bit embarrassing, but I realized that it's so important that we let go of shame of the mistakes we've created. And it was just when computers were becoming a bit more available, and I saw this advert in the newspaper for this investing system, because I now knew, I heard, okay, I was learning about it, I needed to invest, and it was going to be the system that was going to tell me what shares I should buy. And it was this crazy sort of advert that this person had found the trading thing that was going to make me millions. And it was when I was in Hong Kong, and I went and spent an extraordinary amount of money. I think it was like 2 or 3 months of my income on this system. And I went off and I handed my money, and I got given this supposed computer program on a disk, where you still put a disk in a computer. And I put this in, and I really thought, this is it. I'm now going to do the right thing. I'm going to, be an investor. I'm going to start trading stocks. And I found out pretty quickly, it would pop out this what's called a ticker, a stock code to invest, but they were doing nothing. I was investing, and I very quickly realized, well, in a couple of weeks, that this was an absolute scam. It was an absolute con. And I tried to contact this company to go, what's going on? And I even went to their offices, and the offices had now been closed. It was one of these, put the office up. And, I haven't actually shared this story before, because there was a part of me that was just like, how could I have been so stupid? There I supposedly was this engineer, educated, on money, and I was just deeply, deeply ashamed that I could do something so stupid, spend so much amount of money on something was a scam. And just as you said, I just thought, one of the key things I've realized, that we all have things that inadvertently we've fallen for, maybe out of hope, maybe out of fear, maybe out of desperation. And so although I'm just realizing why it's so important that I share this, because I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is how important it's been for me to forgive myself about my own money mistakes, the times I've stumbled, the money I've wasted, maybe the things where I had judgment on myself. And when I'm able to do that liberation is extraordinary. But something about it also frees, it unclogs the ability for abundance, for joy, for wealth to flow easier. So yeah, I fell for a big money frog, and it wasn't pretty. And it just feels good to just share and go, what shame doesn't serve any of us. Oh, I think, Catherine, you've frozen again, my darling. Looks like we're having a little bit of a signal challenge. So it looks like we maybe have lost Catherine again. And so I'm going to end it here. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for you doing your journey. And there we go. Let's see if we can just have a last words from you. You back.
Okay, so when I'm popping in and out, I think I won't risk trying to say anything too much, but I think I want to just ask you, if people and what you teach, how can they find out more about you? Like, where can they go to find out about Financial Freedom University, or is there anything they can sign up to get started with you? You know, just let people know where they can go to find out more.
Yeah, well, jump onto the Wealth Chef site, so thewealthchef.com. So I'll just type that in, but there's a lot of free training, there's some webinars, there's some great articles, and yeah, Catherine said, sort of cut out the bag. We're going to be opening registration for Financial Freedom University towards the end of September. But before that, I've got a great 3-part workshop that I'm going to be running. It would be awesome to have you on board. So
that's free, isn't it? The 3-part workshop is free, yeah?
And it's amazing. For 10 days, we're going to go deep into all these aspects of managing your money and your wealth flows, your assets, really creating this so transformational. So I really hope you join there. And just on Facebook, there is a Facebook group called Wealth Chefs Making Money Work Hard. So I'll type that in as well, but join in there because that's where a lot of conversations going and we can really connect in that space. So I really, look forward to being able to walk by your side on this journey.
And I was going to say something. I mean, we had a conversation. I'd like to introduce her to you all. And whether you decide to do anything further in the series or not, you know, you're free to do whatever. And Anne isn't going about selling you onto a program. I just want to say, like Charity, that if you do end up following Anne and you are considering Financial Freedom University in September, it will be one of the best investments that you make in your life. I've done it myself, but not only that, but every year I recommend it to my clients. So my immediate clients, ones who are in my programs, my mentoring programs, and because they're working so closely with me, there's a lot of trust. And every year you have quite a few people joining who've come from my program. And people frequently say to me, Catherine, I'm so glad you recommend working with you on my business and on my money. This has been the most transformational year of my life. And I've heard that over and over. And I have not ever yet had anybody who has taught this course in glowing terms. And so I know to wrap up. I was doing a Q&A in my private today. We were talking about good, bad debt. And I made this comment, which just sort of, I didn't realize I'd said it. And I talked about the danger of not taking on debt. And I talked about the fact that there have been certain add-ons borrowed to it, and I'm not suggesting that you would go to do this. But had I borrowed money to invest in my business would be where I am now. Had I not been willing to put money into something to learn, you know, had I not willing to pay Anne, and that, and because I worked with you prior as well, it was several thousand pounds, so a lot more than finance. I didn't have sorted.
Oh, and it looks like we've lost Catherine. But thank you all. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Ashley.
Because it could be one of the best things you ever do. And I've disappeared again, so we better wrap up there.
We better wrap up, Sandra. Thanking everybody, thanking you. And just my last message to you is just please know, money wants to serve you. Money wants to support you. And the greatest part of this journey is giving ourselves permission to be supported, to allow that to be true. And thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.